Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next fundamental library demo. Today is February 26th, and we want to give you a little glimpse update from all of the libraries that we've been working lately in the last couple of months. So let me open up the PowerPoint. I hope you see it. So this is the agenda. We will start with the cross-library updates, and then we'll go over each of the library, fundamental library for Vue, fundamental library styles, fundamental library for Angular, and fundamental library for React. So without further ado, let's get started, and let's talk about two topics from the cross-library. And I'll ask Jenna if she's there to just give an update about the font and icon solution that we are updating or implementing right now.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about self-contained styles and trying to deliver you a component with everything it needs on the page. But as we realized, the fonts and icon font are just so large that it makes sense to go down another path so that you can actually cache those and that they're not contained within the component. So we're going to be moving the SAP theming base content from a direct dependency in fundamental styles to a peer dependencies. So consumers at any level, this will now need to bring in SAP theming based content. And then you can get the fonts and the icon font from there. And we'll do this in fundamental styles. And then each of the implementation libraries might have their own solution for fonts, but it'll be well documented, all of those. And these changes haven't happened yet. This is just upcoming. And I'll give it back to Deno to talk about the UI kit.
So quick question on that. So this will only impact how you bring in the fonts. The components that are using fonts will continue to work the same way, or would there be a breaking change there?
So you will need to make the fonts available on the page. So otherwise it'll just go to that fallback that's in the font family. Like I think it's like 72, and then it goes to, you know, all the fallbacks in the font. So if you don't make 72 available on the page, you won't have font 72.
What about the icons?
So the same thing with icons. You'll need to make the icon WAF or WAF2 font, the icon font available. We'll make the actual icon. It'll still be, at least for React, they'll still be packaged with, again, that's why I'm saying this is upcoming. So this is going to be different for each implementation library. But for React, you're still going to have the, like all the icon definitions, but you'll still need to make that font available on the page. And we'll have instructions. There'll be detailed step-by-step guides to do this to your own app.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the main benefit of this is not just, we're, moving things around. The team did some analysis in terms of the data being transferred, and in fundamental styles, we are packing like, I guess, 30 files of the fonts or something like 72 bold, 72 italic, 70, I don't know, and different formats. And at the end of the day, on the application side, in most of the cases, you need one file, I guess, 2 files.
If you're not supporting IE11, you can bring in just like the WAF2 format, which is 30% smaller. If you are, then you want WAF. But before, you were getting like the true type font and all of that. That's honestly like not necessary anymore because every browser besides Opera Mini supports WAF. So you were getting a lot of extra things. So this way you can streamline and make it more customized app by app basis, depending on what you.
Yeah, and even though we know Angular, React, Vue, they're really fast libraries and stuff like that, we still care about performance and bundle size. And thanks to the guys that are analyzing this, we're still focusing on minimizing the bundle on our side, even though we have advantages. Still, this is priority, and reducing this, it's important. And again, this is optimizing also applications that they can decide which exactly font file they want to include, not everything like 40 files, right? And this is being downloaded for the customers, right? And why would you do it if it's not needed, right? But again, as Jenna said, this is something that we also want to document it in a way that the applications affected on that would know what exactly they need to do as a change in order to do that. And by having the direct dependency to the package SAP theming-based content, then you will have access to all that from the first place. So in case they change the icons, they will be published directly, and then you can use it. But yeah, hopefully we can document it in a way that everybody pick it up and see the benefits of it. The next topic is the UI kit, and I want to hand it over to Estela. Estela, do you want to share your screen and explain a little bit more about this?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'll share my screen.
And while she's sharing, just want to say this is because of the huge demand from the designer part, having the UI kit, we're bringing the topic again, even though it's not yet the final solution, but Estela will explain more.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the process of creating the components for the fundamental library in sketch file, and this will be updated in the 4 themings. So later on, we'll have Quartz and Quartz Lite, HCW, and the other one. So it will be supported in 4 different themings. And at the same time, the components will be updated in the progress as accordingly to fundamental styles. So we will start with the components that has already been refactored, so to align with each other. And here I just wanted to demo that how this sketchcad file can be used in the future when designers are using them. So in here, I want to specifically show the button. So all these buttons are, and all the message strips or the components will be created in a symbol. So what that means is that it can be shared cross library and everything's already created. So in order to to use the components as a library, designers will have to add this thing as a library. So install it, and that gives the benefit of when you are creating your own design file, you can, so you will find all the components stored in the sketch file, and here it will, this list will grow as becomes more components when adding in. And for buttons, for example, they will have a list of different buttons. And if you want to insert one, and you can just create it here. And at the same time, if you want to override the value in here, let's say I wanted to say confirm, the button will adjust accordingly. It's responsive, and you can override the value and everything. So that applies to the message strip as well, and as well as every other components. So that will ensure the accuracy of using these components. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Estela. And now I'll go back to take the control to me. And so you see our PowerPoint. The next topic is moving to fundamental library for view. It's been quite some time since we didn't have any update from the library itself, but slowly, we're picking up of updating the components to the latest design of fundamental style. So I'll just quickly demo you few components that were already implemented in the last week or two, and we can talk, a little bit more what's coming after. So I'll go to the documentation page of fundamental view, and the first component, I mean, I'm sure you have seen this in styles, but is the notification being implemented as a component where you can, create a notification, then create notification with different semantics like error warning info. And this is, again, since it's consuming the latest fundamental styles, it's taking the theming parameter. So it's not the old fundamental colors, but the theming colors. So you can, remove or hide, remove and add a notification. Another thing that it's the foundation for the site navigation is the nested list. It's where you can have items and then you can have sub items, similar like for the site navigation, which will come soon. This is the second component. The other one is just the list, where you have all the states. You can have in the compact and cozy mode. You can have icons. You can have different elements in the list. Then one thing that even though it's been done already, there are things to be improved, but Chris is working on the layout grid, so where you can decide to define how many columns you want to have. So you can go up to 6 columns. You can define some gutters. Whether there is no gutter, there is gutter. So you can build your grid in Vue. And last but not least, what he added as well is the split view. So it allows in the Vue application to create a master detail, where in the master you can put you can list items, and in the detail you can show the overview of the selected item from the left side. Then he has a little bit more, you can play with it, how to configure this view. That's about it from Vue. He also a little bit updated the icon gallery, but this is just massaging for easy picking. So if you want to use this icon, instead of looking where it is, this will copy in the clipboard the icon name. So you don't need to remember, you just click and then, is it this one? Let's see, is this copying? Yes, so it's copying in the clipboard the icon name, which is a cool small feature. So the next steps for fundamental library for Vue, it's again catching up with the latest fundamental library styles with the new components and the old one that were migrated to the theming parameters and the latest design from Fiori 3. He's already working on bar and message strip and updating the other components. That's about it from fundamental Vue, and now we'll go to fundamental library styles, where over the last couple of months, we've been migrating the existing components to the latest Fiori 3, adopting the theming parameters, testing it for different browser support, right to left, left to right mode. So we've been trying to cover different issues there. So we created new components and we migrated existing ones. Some of them will demo in the fundamental styles. Some of them will demo later on for Angular. So where you can see not only the look and feel, but also you can see the interaction. So now I'll hand it over to the team. Who is going to be the first person?
Me. I will show the bar component.
Okay, so I stop sharing and you can start sharing.
Let me know if you see my screen.
We see.
Yes.
Okay, so I will start with the bar component. Bar component is a new component. It's a container that can hold multiple elements such as titles, buttons, and input controls. Its content is distributed in 3 areas: left, middle, and right. So you can use the 3 areas together, like in this case, or you can use only one of the areas, like it's the case in the footer, which I'm going to talk in a while. But basically, in the case with the footer, you only have the right section. So these 3 sections, like I said, could be used all of them together or like only one. It has 2 modes, desktop and tablet mobile. And what is specific for this component is the default one is the desktop mode. So if you want to use it in tablet and mode, you need to use the cozy modifier class. Our other components, their default mode is cozy. And if you want to use it in desktop, you add compact modifier. So this is something I wanted to mention. The bar component can be used as a header, as a subheader, footer, and a floating footer. And these examples that I show now, they are used in containers. So if you want to use it in a popover or in a model as building blocks, you need to use the FD bar class with a specific modifier such as header, or in this case, a subheader. If you want to use a header with a subheader, you also need to apply a specific modifier class, which is basically removing the borders around the header. In the case of footer, you have the FD bar footer modifier and the floating footer modifier. All these examples show the usage of bar inside containers. The bar can be used inside the page as a building block. In this case, all you need to do is add the FD bar page modifier, and you can use it inside the page. There is also responsive paddings, which is the space on the left and the right side of the bar. So you can use it in small, medium, large, or extra large pages. And also for home pages, we also have a modifier class, which is FD page home, in case you want to use it in a home page. And that's basically it for the bar component.
What makes it different for a home page?
It's just a building block if you want to use it as a header or footer.
Okay.
Remove some styling, or there's some, like the bar, it's a foundational component for different components that in Fiori 3 they're using. And even though it's shared, they're not sharing exactly the same styling.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh, I believe it's my turn.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you see my screen, guys?
Yes, we see. Dialog.
Okay, so now quick overview of dialog component, previously known as modal. So the dialog control is used to interrupt current user process and demand some information on action from the user. Quick overview of dialog structure. Dialog is composed of a bar component. We can see bar component used as a header or subheader or footer of the dialog. Dialog also has its title, body, placer for dialog loader. This is decisive buttons and resize handle. About sizing of the dialog, by default, the dialog has no horizontal paddings. Horizontal paddings can be added using following classes. What's important and cool, dialog can be put in responsive mode. So paddings, horizontal paddings are going to change depending on the width of the dialog window. On mobile devices, dialog takes full height and width of the device screen. This behavior can be changed using no-mobile stretch class, which will add additional margins at the top and left, top, bottom, left, and right side of the dialog. What's next? Dialog can be used in resize mode, so that's the time when we can see the resize handle. There is also drag and drop mode of the dialog. So if we hover the header of the dialog, there is a drag and dragging cursor changing. and maybe some examples. So that's example of the dialog composed with a list inside. There is also header and subheader coming from the bar component. And dialog using busy indicator component. And that's all about the dialog.
Is the dialog replacement for the modal?
Oh yeah,
yes, it is.
Another agreement that we have is like on top of migrating components to the latest designs. Also, we just to avoid any how to say misunderstanding and misinterpretation, we are renaming the components to the same name as they're done for Fiori 3. So in this case, the model has been renamed to dialog in styles, and then it's going to come later on in the implementation, the reference implementation libraries as well, just to avoid confusion.
Yeah, I think that's a great move. We had some issues in the past. So what would be the impact for projects consuming? Do we have to, is it a breaking change, or have you deprecated the old model and then we choose to migrate it at our convenience?
So there are different examples. One example that we have alert in fundamentals, which somehow is linked with message strip, but the relationship is not one-to-one. Visually, they're the same, but message strip it's been designed only for inline, messages, right? It has never been designed for overlay. So in that case, the alert, it's currently deprecated. Message strip, it's a new component. They both have the same design, but in the future, we'll remove the alert and then just keep the message strip. There is a component that we had toggle, which was renamed to switch, and directly this, we rip the band-aid off. So in this case, it's only switch. There is no toggle, for example. So for in different cases, we have different approaches.
So which approach are we following for dialog?
For dialog, we rip the band-aid. So it's Michal, you can correct me, but there is no model anymore. It's just a dialog.
Yes, it's like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Manav.
Hello?
In the last example there with the dialogues, there was a couple there that are those really examples of dialogues, or are those patterns of how to use a dialogue? I'm specifically talking about that one that had the waiting or busy indicator in. Isn't that really more of a pattern of just what you could potentially put in a dialogue?
In Fiori docs, there is like a composition of dialogue with busy indicator. That's the name of the component. It requires to use specific paddings or margins inside the dialog. So that's why there are separate classes created for handling such example. So that's an example of composition.
But aren't patterns like that one? I get that one is some the select one is kind of unique there, but the loading dialog seems more like a pattern.
It is. There is a specified class dialog loader that needs to be used to provide correct margins that are specified by Fiori 3 design.
So then, for the just maybe clarification, in the when we look on the dialog design, they broken the design into different how to say subsections, like a generic dialog, as Michal presented, with a header with two rows, and then the body and the footer, and they have dialog with busy indicator, dialog with message dialog. Message dialog. They have with a select, with table, with view. So all these things are under the same design of dialog. But yeah, there are like some patterns within the within the dialogue. Next, who's presenting next here?
I think I will present 3 of the components. So
Go ahead.
share my screen.
And this is Jedri.
Yes, hello, Andrew. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So today I will be presenting 3 components, select, multi-input, and combo box, which are, I mean, they are somehow similar because they are using the same list component, a little bit modified list component. So most of the styles are shared with them. So the first one will be the select. The select, which is the most basic component actually, used to enable users to select an item from the predefined list. And it's also worth to say that it should be used when there are less than 12 items to choose from. And when we have more than 12 items, it would be better to use the combo box. So, okay, maybe I will show something. So the select, I mean, it looks like that. We've got the two modes of the select. We've got the cozy mode and the compact mode. So the cozy mode looks like that. It's a little bit bigger than the compact mode. And in compact mode, there is also an example with the case when there is a lot of text. There's too much text. And this is the, I think that's how it looks like when there's too much text. We've got also the 2 columns mode. It's usually used to put additional information to the columns. So for example, in this case, I added, in this example, there are added the prices of the products. There is also the compact mode for the 2 columns and the cozy mode with 2 columns and the icon. Let's go further. We've got the select with the item grouping. So in the case where the list item need to be categorized somehow, it's possible to add the headers for each category. So for example, there are the fruits and the vegetables. So we've got the listed fruits and the vegetables to make it easier to choose. We also have 2 ways to handle the text wrapping. We allow users to wrap the text. I mean, it's the actually behavior by the default. But if someone wants to keep the 1 line, then the user can just add the no wrap to the element. So it keeps the one line of the text and adds the truncation. Okay, the next one, we can add the option to match the select popover body size. So in previous examples, you could see that the body of the popover and the control component had different width. And right now, we've got the same width of the popover body and the same width as the width of the control. We also have, of course, the disabled state, the read-only, and there are the semantic states too. I mean, there are the 4 basic semantic states: invalid, valid, the warning, and the information. And in general, the messages also can be added inside the dropdowns. So even after opening the dropdowns, the user will be able to see the message. And the last one is the example of using the select in the mobile mode. So in general, this component will be visible in the full width and full height of the mobile. So if a user clicks on the select, then it's generally used inside the dialog and the bar. So it's great that it was presented before. So users, when he trigger the open of the select mobile, then he will see only this. So he will be able to select some and close the component. Okay, from the select, it was everything. Let me present the multi-input. So the multi-input is not really the component. I mean, it can be named component, but it's more the pattern. So this is the composition of the components such as the input group, popover, checkbox, list, and tokens with tokenizer components. So as you can see, you can know, the multi-input allows user to enter the multiple values which are displayed as a tokens. So it also provides an editable input field for filtering the list. So it's easier to find the valid option. Okay, so for the multi-input, we've got also the two possible sizes. So there is a cozy mode and the compact mode. As you can see inside the multi-input, there are the tokens and the tokenizer. It's unfortunately we're trying to limit the JavaScript inside, so there is only look and feel. I mean, there is only actually look of this component. Yeah, so as you can see, every selected option is also shown as a token. Yes, so that's how it looks like. It's it's also worth to say that because we're sharing most of the styles, then the possible options such a grouping is also available here. So we've got the compact mode. Yes, so as I said, there is also the way to group the items to some categories. As you can see, we've got the grouping by the fruits and the vegetables. Also, as you could see before, and I mean, you will be able to see after, the match popover body size was enabled in this examples before, because if we disable this this mode, then as you can see, the widths, I mean, it won't have the same size. It looks quite strange here. So that's why we decided to enable these modes in the examples. Also, there is a way to show the read-only multi-input. Yes, with some popover. There is a disabled multi-input, and also the semantic multi-input, which has some status. As you can see, there is a success status and some message, and the message also is inside the popover, inside the multi-input for body. The last thing of it is multi-input inside the mobile mode. So as before, for the select, this window actually will be visible on the full width and full height of the mobile mode to make choosing the items easier. Okay, let's go to the latest one. So this is the combo box, which is also not really the component, it's more the pattern. It's combining the input group component, the popover, and the list components. It's mostly used when there are more items. I mean, there are more than 12 items. So otherwise, it's not worth to use the combo box, because combo box allows users to filter their results. So for example, if someone wants to find the apple, then it will be easier to just write the apple and find the option which is called apple or pineapple. So as you can see, for combo box, we've got the cozy mode and the compact mode. We also have the two columns as it was before. We've got the items grouping. We also decided to enable the match popover body size mode for all of the examples instead of this. So as you can see, when we disable it, it looks like that. So the popover body is not the same with as popover control. We've got the disabled mode and the read-only. There is also the semantic mode. This semantic mode is actually using also the compact mode. As you can see, it's quite smaller, and inside there is a message also. And there is example how to use it with the mobile modes inside the mobiles. Yes, and from the styles, it was everything.
Last but not least on styles, I think we wanted to show the shell bar. Complete overhaul. Mike, are you ready to share?
Yes, I'll share my screen. So the changes to the shell bar for the styles repo were purely aesthetic. mostly updates regarding padding, but kind of more obviously are changes to colors and states of items in lists. So now all the buttons have focus, active, hover, in regular states. Let's see if I click around a little bit. And yeah, so it's mostly just some visual changes and minor stuff, like how this no longer has a pop over arrow. I've got an old version of the shell bar here to compare. So yeah, as you can see, like from a style standpoint, it just pretty much looks different, but functions basically exactly the same.
Are these just compositions of existing components? We already have like a input group and a style for that, and a button and a drop down and all that stuff.
They're
Yes.
specific. They're not the regular buttons. And
so there's kind of two answers to that question. Yes, it is using some existing components, but also, so for example, this input group here has shell bar specific input group classes that aren't used anywhere else. So yeah, you can see here that I've highlighted some shell bar specific input group classes. And there are also shell bar specific button styles and stuff like that. And of course there are classes specifically for the shell bar and nothing else. And that's it for the shell bar.
So Mike, the arrow was removed because it's not a Fury design spec?
I think so.
Okay.
At least not for this component.
I've seen that arrow appear and disappear depending on where you're looking in a documentation. So I don't know about that. I can see how that can be frustrating.
I think there is no arrow if you just have it as a text, but if you have a menu underneath, then you show the arrow as a menu. I think, again, I'm not the single source of truth.
Yeah.
But that's another discussion. Do you guys see my screen back?
Sorry, one question about the logo that was used in the shell bar. Is that
Right.
something the library is going to provide, or that's something like a image that we need to save in the project?
Yeah, it depends on who's using a component. I think in one of the examples we used a different logo. That's just kind of like a placeholder.
Because in I think in NGX, at least the version that I'm using now, it's the image is like embedded in the data itself, and I saw that you're referencing an actual image.
I'll have to take a look at what NGX is doing, but what do you mean embedded in the?
Like it's an SVG data that's embedded in a style.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you could either use your own image or you could use an SVG if you wanted. Doesn't matter. But no, the provided SVG there that's just supposed to be an example.
Do you guys see my screen again?
Yes.
The PowerPoint. So as a very next step, we have already PRs for most of the components, but action bar, calendar, date picker, button, big overhaul coming there, info label, object status, and menus will be merged and released in the version 0.7 and version 0.8. The other thing that Jenna mentioned earlier, the removal of font 72 and icons from the package itself, it will happen in the version 0.8. And then these are the few components that will be migrating or creating in the next releases. A little bit more kind of more predictable. We were thinking and trying to do a release every other week, or let's say twice a month, roughly. We don't want to put a date as we when we're ready to release. We want to validate, test, and find issues and fix them. but let's say this is how roughly will look, hopefully the plan in styles. And then for 0.7, these are the few components that we want to release, 0.8, few more there. And this is all from fundamental styles. Now we will switch to fundamental library for Angular. And first we will go over the core package where you see new components were created and some of them were migrated as they were existing before. And since you know, we didn't show them in styles, we will show now in Angular so we can see the visual part, but also the behavior as well. So I'll hand it over back to the team, and who wants to start first?
I can. Let's go by the order in the list.
Okay, go ahead.
You can see the screen?
Yes.
So let's start with a simple one. This is a switch component, previously known as toggle. It's like a fancy checkbox. It's used to represent active or inactive state. So we have default switch in two sizes, in cozy size and compact size. If we click on it, it changes position and represents the on and off state. It can be, of course, disabled. It is like any other form control. So it also can be used within template-driven forms in Angular, into a binding mode. There is also a semantic mode of the switch component. So we have another visual representation of on and off states. And of course, it can be also used with reactive forms in Angular. And that's all from switch.
One change that, I mean, we didn't encourage people using it, but in the older versions, they support text inside the switch itself. But due to, the design was referencing or advising using 2 or 3 letters, and not all the languages can support on and off translated only in 2 and 3. So the recommendation is, I mean, not the recommendation, they deprecated the switch with a label inside. So the label should be outside before the switch, giving a little bit more context, and it could be longer.
Is the label part of the control, or is it just you're supposed to use it in conjunction with a label?
So yes and no. So they have designs that the label, it's a different label. But when it comes to the semantic design, in the latest design, you can have actually 2 labels, label next to the field and label like for on and off that you can toggle in between. So this one, we need to add it in the styles first, and then release it in order to have the access. But this is a latest change that we didn't have it when we implemented the switch. So now the question is now, if the second label is part of the field, is this part of the focus as well? This is a question that we need to discuss with the designers a little bit further. It might go back and forth about this, but yes.
So we're using like a input group for other types of collections of inputs plus labels together. Should it be done in the same manner?
What do you mean?
So the label is not part of the component; it's actually part of the input group itself.
Right.
So would it be done that way?
We need to discuss how to implement it and whether it's going to be a separate component of part. But we have also some concern that if the label is part of the toggle, how it's going to look like. But yeah, we can discuss it in tomorrow's meeting.
Okay.
Who's next? We have tabs.
Okay, so maybe I will present some tabs.
Yes, present some of them.
Okay, I will present all of them actually.
Well, they added the
So
new page after, so in the design they created a new subsection.
yes. So it's already outdated, but
No. It's not
I mean,
outdated. They added more types. So.
we're missing some modes, but in general, there are most of the nodes. Okay, so in general, the tabs are the components to organize the content in separated views. We provided, it's also worth to say that it can be navigated by, I mean, it's built in, so it can be navigated by the arrows, and it fully supports the keyboard, so it can the tabs can be switched by the enter, K, and the space. Okay.
Is the underline supposed to follow a second or two behind, or is it, because it seems like if you're doing that fast, it was actually not following.
Okay, sorry, I will do it slower. Okay, the underline shows, it indicates the active one. So as you can see right now, there is a tab third, but for example, if you switch to first tab, then as you can see, the content is changed to the first, and the first link, first tab is active.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we provided 3 ways to implement them. I mean, this component is also available on the styles. We adapted it to NGX, and we will show it on NGX because it looks the same as on styles, and it also has functionality. That's why. Okay, so we provided 3 ways to implement them. In Angular, you can actually use them. You can implement them by passing only the parameters, the properties. The properties will be different on each mode, but for example, for this most simple mode, it will be only a title. People can also build it by defining the template. So mostly it's basing on the directives. But for example, they can specify their own markups. And the last one, it's because in general, it's built in ULLI. So if people want to avoid it or want to add some anchors, they can also build it with nav and diffs and the anchors. Okay, it's actually for all of the modes. So I'll just right now show the modes. Okay, and the tabs has got the semantic states, as you can see. So all of the modes also support the semantic states. Yes. So as you can see, as you know, semantic states indicates what is the state of the tab. Let's go to the next. We've got the tabs with counter. Tabs counter this is mostly used to show some amount of some items inside the tab. Got the icon only mode. It's mostly used to visualize the type of the content included inside the tab. So we can put any icon we need, and we can use it also on the compact mode. There is also the process mode. The process mode is mostly used for some, as the name says, it's mostly used for processes like the registering, logging, or the buying some products. So yes, as you can see, also there is a compact mode for it. It also provides keyboard support as every mode. And we've got the last one, we've got the filter mode, which can actually be used to show some search results, to group them somehow. As you can see, they can be also used with the counters. Yes. And we decided to keep the old programmatic selection, the old functionality with the programmatic selection. So people can also, by binding the value to the main component, they can also change the tabs without clicking on it. So we just calling some methods inside the component or passing some values for selected tabs. Yes, and we decided to keep the adding and removing functionality for the tabs. Yes, and we also updated the playground. So if you want to take a look at it, feel free to do this. You can also change whatever you want.
This component is called the tab. Is that right?
Yes, it's called the tab.
You use the navigation?
It depends. I mean, it can use the navigation with the anchors, and it don't have to use the navigation.
According to the last example, you actually used a nav HTML element.
Mm-hmm.
Is it all built under the covers using a nav HTML element?
I mean, all of the modes can be used, can be built by using the nav element HTML. But in general, they by default are using the ULLI. So it's the list.
I understand that, but from an accessibility perspective, there's actually a fundamental difference between a navigation element and a tab element. They're both called out as separate components.
You mean the site navigation?
What's that?
You mean the site navigation?
No,
I mean
from the
from the
HTML.
WCAG requirements, there's actually different attributes that need to be in place when a component is acting as a tab component and when it's acting as a navigational element.
You're actually right. That's why we're allowed to use. I mean, that's why we allowed to use whatever people want actually, and that's why we decided to keep also the nav mode. It was named like nav mode for the tabs.
Okay, but are you putting the proper attributes in place for when you're using it as a navigation element versus when you're using it as a tab element?
I mean,
ARIA attributes that need to be put in place for both modes.
In general, I mean, there is no way to put attributes. Like, you mean the ARIA attributes, for example?
Yes.
Okay, so there is no way to put ARIA attributes for these two modes. I mean, these two ways of building the tabs with the passing the properties or passing the directives. It's only possible to when we are using the nav mode, but in general, we don't have to use the nav element. For nav mode, we can use whatever we want, actually. We can use even ULLI.
ULLI is not enough for it to be just a collection.
Yeah, I know, but the HTML elements are, I mean, you can add whatever attribute you want in nav mode.
I don't think the consumer should have to add that. I think that because it's a tab component, the component should actually be responsible for policing that information. You guys can take it offline.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Question. This is Kevin. Does the tab bar handle overflow?
Not yet, unfortunately. It's not.
Okay.
Next in the list, we have tokenizer and token. Mike, do you think you can present it now, or we can go with the form control for component first?
Can I just present the tokenizer?
Sure.
Okay.
It combines them both anyway, so.
Yeah. So, let me share my screen. So we've added this tokenizer component, and what this does is allows users to add or remove tokens from this little list of tokens right here. This can be used as part of a form, as we're doing in this example here. And this component will probably most frequently be used as part of the multi-input pattern. So we'll take a look at that component, and I'll add some tokens. And yeah, so that's how the multi-input works now. And yeah, that's it. That's it for the new tokenizer. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a quick question. Are there guidelines on what is the max size of tokenizers it can handle, or?
So
with,
we have a story in our backlog right now to handle overflow, which we're not doing quite yet. But all that's going to happen is tokens that cannot fit within the input will be removed from this visually, and there will be some text that says, plus 2 more, or plus how many more.
I think you had represented it in a visually, like if you don't have enough space for all the tokens, then you see as many as it's feasible to see, and there is a label next to it, let's say 5 more. Once you click on the button on the end, when you expand the component inside, you're going to see all of them.
Yes.
If this is the question you raised.
Yes, that was exactly the question. Thanks.
Yeah. For messages, and I think this is Gratian, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So good afternoon, everybody. I want to start my presentation from the input itself, because there are like added a little bit things to the input. So first of all, we added support and fix a few bugs related to RTL mode. So right now the input supports also RTL mode.
You're not sharing, by the way. Are you sharing your screen?
Maybe he doesn't want to share. We can imagine.
No, sorry. Okay, right now I am sharing the screen. So back to RTL mode. This is how input looks like in when you want to use in RTL mode. So everything is switched from right to left. There is one additional thing added to input help. It's called input help element. This is this little thing at the right. So it's like tooltip implemented for the component itself, when you can add an extra information, what value or what item this input should store. Same thing, it supports RTL as well. Besides of that, here we have input states with messages component. So it's a combination of input with the message component when you have like different states. This is the success states, the error, warning, and information. So all of them has additional value, not value, but information added why, for instance, the validation is not passed, or why this is the warning, or just info. Besides of that, there is an also disabled state and read-only state. And here, this is a usage of input with reactive forms, because previous examples was used with ng model, and this is example how to work with inputs with reactive forms. So this is the input. Let's move to text area. Text area, well, it behaves, maybe not behaves, but we fix also the bugs related to RTL, and added a couple more features like the text area help elements, which supports RTL. Also, text area contains messages, as with previous example from input, and the text area usage with reactive forms. So you can take a look here and check what should be there to accomplish the reactive form. Okay, next part is a checkbox. Checkbox has been rewritten from scratch because previously it was used with like proper semantics, like it's HTML one. But HTML semantics were not supported well in terms of styles in I11. So we had to rethink and then rewrite the checkbox. So here, this is like the simple checkbox with true and false values. Besides of that, checkbox can have 3 states. So right now you can see that this is the true state, false state, and null state in this case, which is undeterminate. Also, there is a proposal from us that 3 state can be once the 3 state is selected, and when user clicks it, it is not longer able to select the 3rd state. So it is only shown right once. Also, RTL support is added as well. Okay, besides of that, of course, with additional like 3 states passing to a component, there's also support for custom values. So right now, this is the value used when the checkbox is checked. This is the custom value when the checkbox is not checked. And for first state, I don't know, I don't have an option. So it's passed like the object. And here there's usage of checkbox with reactive forms, as well with custom label. Checkbox also, as with previous example, can have different states like information, success, warning, and invalid state. To use it with mobile devices, there is a special class, not class, sorry, but property called compact, when you have to explicitly say that this component should be used in a mobile device. Same, let's jump quickly to Ready button. Ready button has also been reworked from scratch for the same reasons as checkbox. So here, this is the default checkbox. This is the example with one item disabled by default. Ready buttons in a horizontal mode, and also Ready buttons support different states. The first is success, the second is warning, third is invalid, and fourth is for information only. Checkboxes also support compact mode, so this is how you can achieve that. And of course, here is a usage with reactive forms itself, because as well as with checkboxes, previous examples were using ng model instead of reactive forms. Okay, and last thing which I want to present you is an input group. So input group is a combination of the text, well, the input, and the label itself assigned to the input. Here, this is the extra icon added to the text, and here the right aligned texts are also added. So when we switch to RTL, it's switch position. Here we have an example with input with additional icon added to the input, and here we can also, as previous example, we can specify where the icon should be placed. Besides of that, we can add additional elements to the well, not add, but this is the example with input group which contains a button at left and at right, so with proper positioning. Input group can also can be used with compact mode, so in mobile devices, which also contains, for instance, button, and button also is shrinked to compact mode to match Fury-free design. Input group number. This is component called spinner. So this component, besides of having an input type number, it contains two buttons when you can increment or decrement a specific number. And besides of, here we have additional component called search. So when I want to, for instance, type some text, I can click X to delete the terms which I wanted to search by.
Are those buttons in tab order? Like if you tab from the input?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
yes,
is that search supposed to actually initially show like a spyglass or something like that?
That's something that we have to take to consideration and maybe make it offline. But I believe we have
it's not a real search. This is just to show how you can achieve a custom. Yeah, it's not a real search.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just a demo that you can achieve search like that.
Well, my concern is that I think that at least in some of the examples, either here or in web components, they show it is a composition essentially of a search, but the search has a spyglass icon, but the icon itself is just an icon. It's not a clickable element. It's just there to demonstrate this is a search input. But if you're saying that at some point you type into it and you get a X to actually dismiss things, does that mean that the input icon changes to a button? I'm just kind of curious about what the actual user interaction would be.
Well, no, this is not an icon. It's a button contains, which contains.
No, but in the style of the search input that's seen elsewhere, there's a spyglass there, and when that spyglass is there initially, it's not a clickable element. It's just there to demonstrate this is a searchable field. But if you're saying that at some point you start typing, it changes from a spyglass to a button. That means it's changing from an icon to a clickable element. I don't know if anybody's actually worked through that kind of challenge.
So this is just, I think the example shouldn't be put as a search. It's just to show how customly you can achieve search in a way that you can use input and a button, but it's just a custom example.
So you might want to, yeah, I don't know, because search is an actual like top level component. It might be not, you might want to rename this just to kind of not mix that up. So
we, although we may add like the recipe to how to achieve the effect that you have, like with the empty text, well, with the empty input, you can have an icon and then switch to buttons. So, but I think we have to, think about that if we want to add this to that documentation.
But it's a valid point to not to confuse people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also for the spinner spin box, in theory we have something called stepped input. So where there's a input at the center, and on the either side we have plus and minus buttons.
So would that be used for like making numbers go up and down? Is that something that you would potentially use it for? I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about this one because I feel like you've got a low hit radius for your up and down arrows there. You probably don't. You're probably not meeting like, I think you need like a minimum of like 44 pixels for a button size, and those are clearly very small buttons.
Yes, that's true, and we have a ticket for that. I believe also the designs of input group is
doesn't meet the accessibility.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like the alternate design where you have a plus and minus on either side might actually give you more physical height to work with. But it might be unuseful because you have the button so physically far apart too. So.
They might in mobile convert it to like.
Or it could be two buttons side by side, I guess. Do you have the ability to do multiple buttons here? I know you're showing your input group here. Are you assuming that there's only going to be one button on one side and one button on the other side? Could you ever do multiple buttons on one side?
Well, actually, here you have the design for two buttons, but there are,
specific.
Yes,
that's specific.
It is possible. It is possible to add multiple buttons, but it's not in examples because it wasn't Fiori 3 blind.
Okay.
In the Fiori 3, there is open points that they don't. I don't think they address the accessibility because these buttons, by their spec, are not focusable. But we made them focusable. But again, this is I think not finalized topic.
Okay.
Yes. Any more questions? Okay, so last thing is, as with previous examples, input groups also have states, which states for information, success, warning, and invalid state. And beneath, you have the playground to play and check what's options available.
So states often follow with validation messaging?
Well, we shown it as validation messages because this is like the common usage of that. Although for instance, information or success can be used in a different place, and that may vary, but it's not rated to validation steps. Because, but in terms of like inputs, it's a consistent way to show us a validation steps to achieve that effect. So the colors and message states. Yes, so that's it from those components.
I'll take the control back on me. So the update, what's coming next. So this is kind of our release plan on NGX. We want to release it again every other week, but maybe not in the same week as fundamental styles. So on the next release that we're planning on NGX 0.15, we want to release the shell bar on from the Angular side, bar, popover, combo box, smooth input, and select, reflecting the latest design from styles. Again, as one release after styles releasing the new components or the updated components. And for the release after, what we want to address, we want to migrate to Angular 9 and have the latest buttons that will be released in styles in 0.7, a calendar, date picker, action bar, and dialog. For the releases after, more components will come, but this is in the near future. So now I will want to hand it over to Manav's group, talking about the platform. Manav, do you want you to share the screen, or you just want me to? I think it's better if you share the screen, right?
Sure, I can share my screen. Our team has also been very busy with, I guess, just to give a background on, people already know what we're doing. We are enhancing the Angular library, and it has two pieces to it. One is the Angular core, and then there's the platform piece. What we had been struggling with internally was there was a lot of churn happening on PRs between the architects and the developers. So what we wanted to do was, and we were going to get a bunch of resources for us to leverage, whether that is contracting or permanent, to speed up the work that we are going to do on platform. So then that needed a lot of planning and requirement capturing. So what our team has done since last December, mainly it is Kevin and Sushma on my team and Frank. They have started to document all the components and what are the technical requirements related to that components, to those components. I encourage you guys to probably go look at this. This is under Fundamental NGX Wiki, and it's all organized under this platform library home. So you guys are welcome to go review it, and please send over your comments if you feel we need to change anything. One example I wanted to give was design for the data table. This is actually this is the implementation of a data table that we had done last year, but this particular data table was based upon Prime NG framework. But we want to, our needs and functionality still remain the same. Hence, this is a good example for people to go review of the kind of enhancements that we want to do. It's pretty detailed, so I would encourage people to see if this feeds your need. And I would love to hear requirements on data table if your organization has any additional requirements to what is already documented. Please add those, or let us know. We can add those as part of our technical docs. Metadata driven UI. I think Frank did a technical deep dive into Meta UI. I think Dino, was it during last demo?
Yes, he did a detailed demo of Meta UI.
Yeah, so if people want to start getting familiar with Meta UI and what it offers, I would encourage, I've shared the link in the presentation, so people should start looking at that. I guess just to mention that Meta UI, I think Frank used the couple of examples that you see right now related to Meta UI, they were based earlier on the PrimeNG components, and Frank has slowly started to use some of the components within the NGX platform. But I guess Meta UI is not going to be usable till the NGX platform library is completely developed. But what does Meta UI offer is what I want to talk about. It offers customizability at the application level, at the individual module level. And when I say module, it is at the page level, module level, classes level, and fields level. So there are, when in the documentation, sometimes you will find that Meta UI, it is written, hey, Meta UI will allow you to customize your UI based upon your domain model. Please do not confuse domain model with the database domain model. It is the domain model that is on the UI side. So how you represent your JSON objects and business object entities on the user front. So please explore this. Send us your feedback on Meta UI. Once the NGX platform components are all done, our first goal is to have this customizability and available using the NGX platform framework, and Meta UI can further be extended to spit out Vue and React components in future. So that is the roadmap and the goal. Frank did a demo of how this all works as part of DCOM, both in Germany as well as Palo Alto. His work is shared as part of this Git repository. Please go and explore this a bit more if you get time. This actually shows you how you can customize the various things, right? How do address field or address field is represented in the UI by just adding OSS rules. So this is a good playground for people to get familiar, and it has good set of examples. All right. I think I already talked about application level, page level, and specific stuff, modules, layouts, classes, and fields. I think that's about it. So Dino, back to you.
I mean, I already presented that part. Let me take the control.
Yep.
Thanks for presenting the platform. So yes, so we are going to be migrating to Angular 9 in the next release in 0.16. The core roadmap I showed you guys before. So now we will jump to the fundamental library for React, where I think Jenna will give a quick update. I guess I don't need to stop sharing, right, Jenna?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk. So we don't have as many updates going on as the other libraries, but right now we have a pretty intense ongoing effort to upgrade to the latest version of fundamental styles so we can stay in sync with the other libraries. We've also done a big push to improve the accessibility and usability of our calendar and date picker components. The Concur accessibility team has been working hard on those. So that will be ready for consumption relatively soon. And then we've had a lot of outside contributions, which is really exciting. So I wanted to bring attention to that because we always love outside contributors. And then next steps going forward, we're going to be working on the font and icon solution that I talked about at the beginning for the shared library. And I just want to call attention that that will be something incoming, but I don't have exact details quite yet. And then that's it for React.
Thank you. I mean, I guess since you're migrating the components, they're doing the same as in styles. It's the same thing. Now, let's jump to, I mean, we had some questions along the demo, but let's open the stage and the floor for all the questions that you guys have, you might have. So now it's your chance.
One question for the NGX team, maybe fundamental styles team as well. Is there a page where we can see which components have been migrated with the Fiori specs and which ones are not? Specifically around table. So is the table component been through that cycle with the sorting functionality and even the sorting styles? Also, there's pagination, which is kind of a basic component. There's no specs in Fiori as far as I could find. So just wanted to check in to see if you guys have any plans to work on those.
We do have plans for table, of course. The table have not been migrated yet. We had different discussions with Manaf as well as they need the table. I mean, table it's quite important, but we left it to more the end of the migration path while most of the other components are migrated. So soon the table, at least from the styles part, will be in our backlog to be migrated. The pagination, yes, at least at the moment, there is no spec. We will check with the designers from Fiori 3 whether there is such a thing in the future plan, but no more update for the pagination.
Thank you.
Other questions? I mean, you can guys always reach us in different channels directly, go through our Slack channel. We have also our communication ladies publishing some updates in Twitter, and some of the demos are publishing our channel in YouTube. So in case you want to rewatch or watch it in the future, in case you didn't join today, you're free. With that, I think this is the end of our demo, and thanks for joining. It's been really hard work by different groups and different people, which is the key factor for fundamental library success. There is no single group or team that stays behind the library. It's Concur, Ariba, C4. We have support from SAP UX. We have working with SAP UI5. There is, I think, other groups like Data Hub and others that I forget now, but still a lot of group and teams are behind the work being demoed today and the future. So thanks for joining, and hope to see you in the next days and weeks and then the next demo as well. Any feedback from your side, it's always appreciated, and you know how to find us. So I think that's it from our side. Thanks for joining again, and see you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.